The silence in space was complete. Where the Zentari fleet had been floating just minutes before, there was nothing but empty darkness and tiny particles of dust that sparkled in the light of distant stars. 300 massive warships had simply ceased to exist, erased so completely that even their atoms had been scattered. Across the galaxy, alien civilizations watched their communication screens in stunned silence. The broadcast from Earth was still playing, showing the complete destruction of the most feared military force in known space. Leaders who had trembled at the mention of the Zentari Empire now stared in disbelief at what they had just witnessed. On the planet Cathara, Prime Minister Veltar of the Catharan Republic watched the transmission with his military advisors. His people had been fighting the Zentari for 50 years, losing system after system to their advance. "Play it again," he said quietly. "I need to see this again." The recording showed the moment when the human quantum minds activated. In the span of 3 heartbeats, the entire Zentari invasion fleet had dissolved into nothing. No explosions, no debris, no escape pods. They were simply gone. "How is this possible?" his defense minister asked. "The Zentari had shields that could stop anything. Their armor could resist nuclear weapons. How did the humans destroy them so easily?" "I do not know," Veltar replied. "But I want to send a message to Earth immediately. If these humans are willing to be our allies, the war against the Zentari is over." Similar conversations were happening on 1,000 worlds across the galaxy. Species that had lived in fear of the Zentari Empire were suddenly free. Others who had been forced to serve the Empire were realizing they no longer had masters to obey. On Earth, President Morrison was receiving reports from intelligence agencies around the globe. Every alien communication network in the galaxy was buzzing with activity as the news spread. "Sir," Defense Secretary Lisa Carter said, reading from her tablet, "we are receiving contact requests from 47 different alien governments. They all want to establish diplomatic relations with Earth." "And what about the Zentari Empire itself?" President Morrison asked. Admiral Ben Hayes pulled up a galactic map on the main screen. Red dots showed the locations of known Zentari military bases and command centers. "Their empire is falling apart, sir. Without their main fleet, they have no way to control their territories. Local commanders are either running away or surrendering to whoever will accept them." Dr. Nina Walsh was monitoring the quantum communication networks that connected Earth's secret facilities. "Sir, we are detecting massive military movements throughout Zentari space. Their subject species are rebelling. Their slave worlds are declaring independence. It looks like their entire empire is collapsing." Commander Ryan Kelly aboard the Aurora was coordinating intelligence gathering across multiple star systems. His ship's advanced sensors were tracking the chaos spreading throughout former Zentari territory. "This is incredible," he told his crew. "Their empire controlled over 800 star systems. Every single one of them is now in revolt. The Zentari military is completely overwhelmed." His communications officer looked up from her station. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the Zentari homeworld. It is a surrender offer." "Put it through," Kelly ordered. The transmission showed an elderly Zentari official in elaborate robes. He looked exhausted and defeated. "This is Chancellor Morgek of the Zentari High Council. We wish to negotiate terms of surrender with the human government. We acknowledge your superior military power and request mercy for our people." Captain Alex Rodriguez was still patrolling near Earth in the Silent Thunder when he received new orders from Admiral Hayes. "Captain, proceed to coordinates 77 Alpha. There is a Zentari research station there that we want to investigate." "Understood, sir," Rodriguez replied. "What are we looking for?" "Intelligence reports suggest they have been developing new weapons to use against rebellious planets. We want to make sure those weapons are never used." The Silent Thunder moved through space faster than light itself, using drive systems that bent reality around the ship. Within an hour, they had traveled what would have taken the Xanthari months to cover. The research station was a massive structure built into an asteroid. It was heavily defended with automated weapons and shield generators. Or at least, it had been heavily defended before the humans arrived. "Disable their defenses," Rodriguez ordered. Lieutenant Sarah Williams activated the ship's quantum disruption systems. The same technology that had erased the Xanthari fleet now targeted the station's weapons. In seconds, every defense system simply stopped working. "Defenses neutralized, sir," Williams reported. "The station is helpless." Rodriguez opened a communication channel to the station. "Xanthari Research Facility. This is Captain Rodriguez of the Earth Defense Force. You will surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded." The response came quickly. "We surrender. Please do not destroy us. We will cooperate fully." Major Kate Thompson was coordinating similar operations across the galaxy from her underground command center. Human ships were appearing at strategic locations throughout former Xanthari space, securing important facilities and preventing the destruction of valuable resources. "Sir," she reported to Admiral Hayes, "our forces have secured 15 major weapons facilities, 30 research stations, and 47 military command centers. No resistance encountered. They are all surrendering immediately." Admiral Hayes nodded with satisfaction. "What about their slave labor camps?" "Liberation operations are underway," Thompson replied. "We estimate over 50 million beings will be freed from Xanthari captivity within the next 24 hours. The scope of human operations was becoming clear to alien observers. Earth had not just destroyed one fleet. They had simultaneously launched coordinated strikes across an entire galaxy, targeting hundreds of locations with perfect precision and timing. Captain Dan Foster commanded the battle group centered around the USS Retribution, one of humanity's most advanced warships. His mission was to ensure that no Xanthari forces could regroup and threaten anyone else. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we have located the Xanthari Reserve Fleet. 60 ships hiding in the Outer Rim territories." "Are they showing any hostile intent?" Foster asked. "No, sir. They are broadcasting surrender signals and requesting safe passage to neutral territory." Foster considered his options. The smart move was to let them go. These Xanthari had not participated in the attack on Earth, and they were clearly not interested in continuing the fight. Grant them safe passage, he decided. But make it clear that if any Xanthari vessel attacks anyone, anywhere, we will find them and deal with them. President Morrison addressed the world once more from the White House. Behind him, screens showed the liberation of alien worlds across the galaxy. Species that had been enslaved for generations were breathing free air for the first time in decades. "My fellow humans," he said, "today we have not only defended our world, but we have freed an entire galaxy from tyranny. This was never about conquest or revenge. It was about protecting the innocent and standing up to bullies." Dr. Walsh was already working on the next phase of humanity's plan. "Sir, we need to discuss long-term strategy. The galaxy is going to need help rebuilding. There are refugee populations, damaged infrastructure, and economic chaos on hundreds of worlds." "What do you recommend?" President Morrison asked. "We share our technology," she said simply. "Not the weapons, obviously, but the peaceful applications. Medical technology, construction techniques, agricultural improvements, we help them build a better galaxy." Admiral Hayes was receiving reports from across human space. "Sir, we have confirmation that every major Xanthari military installation has been secured or surrendered. Their empire is finished. The threat is over." The president nodded slowly. In less than 4 hours, humanity had accomplished what entire alien civilizations had been trying to do for centuries. They had not just defeated the Xanthari Empire. They had completely destroyed it and freed everyone who had suffered under its rule. But the real work was just beginning. With great power came great responsibility, and humanity now found itself as the dominant military force in the galaxy. What they did next would determine the future of countless civilizations. The Zentarii had learned too late that humanity was not the primitive species they appeared to be. Now the entire galaxy was learning the same lesson, but in a very different way. The 60 seconds passed like years for Admiral Zexthul. What he saw on his screens made no sense. Where there had been empty space just moments before, hundreds of human ships now floated in perfect formations. Each vessel was sleek, powerful, and completely unknown to Zentarii databases. "How is this possible?" he whispered, his confidence cracking like thin ice. "Where did they come from?" His sensor officer was frantically checking his equipment. "Sir, these ships just appeared. Our sensors show nothing. Then suddenly they are there. It is like they were invisible." "That is impossible," General Krixvor said, but his voice shook. "No species has stealth technology that advanced. We would have detected them." On Earth, President Morrison's message was being broadcast not just to the alien fleet, but across the entire galaxy. Every civilization that had been conquered by the Zentarii Empire was now watching to see what would happen next. "People of the galaxy," President Morrison said calmly, "today you will witness the end of the Zentarii threat. For too long, this empire has bullied and destroyed peaceful worlds. Today, that ends." Dr. Nina Walsh stood beside the president, holding a device that looked like a simple tablet. In reality, it was the control system for Project Haymaker, humanity's most secret weapon. She had spent 20 years developing technology that the aliens could not even imagine. "Project Haymaker is online," she said quietly. "All quantum disruption arrays are charged and ready." Admiral Ben Hayes was coordinating with human forces across the solar system. Ships that had been hiding behind asteroids, in the shadows of planets, and in folded space itself were now revealing their positions. The Zentarii fleet suddenly found themselves surrounded by enemies they never saw coming. "Lightning strike. This is command," Admiral Hayes said into his communicator. "You are cleared for Operation Start. Lieutenant Commander Sam Parker aboard, the destroyer." Lightning Strike smiled as he received the order. His ship was one of the smaller vessels in the human fleet, but it carried weapons that could destroy entire star systems if needed. Today they would only need a tiny fraction of that power. "Deploy quantum mines," Parker ordered his weapons officer. "Set them for phase penetration. I want them to pass right through those alien shields like they are not even there." "The weapons." Officer's hands moved across his controls. "Quantum mines deployed, sir. They are moving toward the alien fleet now." Captain Alex Rodriguez watched from the silent thunder as small, invisible objects began floating toward the Zentarii ships. The aliens had no idea that death was approaching them at the speed of light. Their sensors could not detect quantum mines because the weapons existed partially outside normal space. "This is almost too easy," Lieutenant Sarah Williams said. "Should we feel bad about this?" Captain Rodriguez thought about all the worlds the Zentarii had destroyed, all the innocent people they had killed. "No," he said firmly, "they chose this path when they decided to threaten Earth." Admiral Zexthul was trying to understand what was happening. His fleet of 300 massive warships was suddenly facing an enemy that appeared to have more ships, better technology, and weapons he had never seen before. "Fire on the nearest human vessel," he ordered desperately. "Show them the power of the Zentarii Empire." The alien weapons fired, sending streams of plasma toward the human ships. The energy beams that could melt mountains struck the human shields and simply disappeared, absorbed and redirected harmlessly into space. "Impossible," Admiral Thaindal said, staring at his weapons displays. "Nothing can absorb that much energy. Those shields should have failed instantly." Commander Ryan Kelly, aboard the Aurora, was coordinating the human response from his disguised research vessel. What the aliens thought was a simple science ship was actually one of the most advanced command centers ever built. "All units, this is Aurora Command," he said. Begin quantum disruption sequence. Remember, we want this to be quick and clean. Dr. Walsh activated Project Haymaker with a simple touch on her tablet. Across the solar system, weapons that had been hidden for decades began to power up. These were not ordinary weapons that fired bullets or energy beams. They were quantum disruptors that attacked matter itself at the atomic level. "Quantum field generators online," she reported. "Targeting alien fleet now. All ships locked." The quantum mines reached the Zenthari vessels and passed through their shields without triggering any alarms. The alien defense systems never even detected them. The mines positioned themselves next to the alien ship's most critical systems and waited for the activation signal. Major Kate Thompson was monitoring everything from her underground command center. Her screens showed the position of every quantum mine, every human ship, and every alien vessel. The entire battle was being fought with precision that would have amazed the greatest military minds in history. "All mines in position," she reported. "Ready for activation on your command." President Morrison looked at the screens showing the alien fleet. These ships had destroyed hundreds of worlds and killed billions of innocent people. Their crews had come to Earth expecting an easy victory and another planet to add to their empire. "Admiral Hayes," he said quietly, "you may fire when ready." Admiral Hayes nodded and opened a communication channel to all human forces. "All units, this is command. Execute Order Haymaker. Repeat, execute Order Haymaker." The quantum mines activated simultaneously. In less than a second, they began breaking down the molecular bonds that held the alien ships together. The process was invisible to normal sensors, but the results were immediate and devastating. Admiral Zexthul felt his ship shudder beneath his feet. Warning alarms began screaming throughout the bridge as systems started failing one by one. His massive flagship, the terror of 1,000 worlds, was simply coming apart. "What is happening?" he shouted over the alarms. "Report!" "Sir, our hull is dissolving," his engineering officer said in panic. "The molecular structure is breaking down. It is like our atoms are forgetting how to stay together." Across the Zenthari fleet, the same thing was happening to every ship. 300 massive warships were dissolving into cosmic dust in a matter of seconds. The crews had no time to send distress signals, no time to evacuate, no time to understand what was killing them. The quantum disruptors worked faster than thought. One moment the Zenthari fleet existed, and the next moment it was gone. Where 300 ships had floated in space, there was now only empty darkness and scattered particles. Captain Rodriguez watched the alien fleet disappear from his sensors. "Well, that was anticlimactic," he said to his crew. "I was expecting more of a fight." Lieutenant Williams checked her instruments. "All alien vessels destroyed, sir. No survivors. The entire fleet has been eliminated." President Morrison's message continued broadcasting across the galaxy. "Let this be a lesson to any who would threaten Earth or her people. We do not seek war, but we will not tolerate aggression. The age of the Zenthari Empire is over." Dr. Walsh powered down the quantum disruptors with another touch of her tablet. The weapons that had just erased an entire invasion fleet went back to their hidden status, invisible and waiting. "Project Haymaker complete," she said. "All systems returning to standby mode." Admiral Hayes opened communications with human colonies throughout the galaxy. "All stations, this is Earth Command. The threat has been eliminated. Operation Haymaker was a complete success. The battle was over before it had really begun. The Zenthari Empire's best fleet, their most experienced commanders, and their most powerful weapons had been erased from existence in less than 4 minutes. But across the galaxy, other alien civilizations were receiving the broadcast of what had just happened. The implications were terrifying. If humans could do this to the mighty Zenthari Empire, what could they do to anyone else who threatened them? The galaxy had just learned that Earth was not the primitive world it appeared to be. Humanity had been hiding in plain sight, developing weapons and technology that made every other species look like children playing with toys. The Zenthari Empire was gone, but the real message was just beginning to spread across the stars. The alien fleet spread across Earth's solar system like a disease. Each massive ship took its position with the practiced ease of a military force that had never known defeat. Admiral Zexathul watched from his command chair as his vessels formed. Perfect attack formations around the small blue planet. "Look at them down there," he said to his officers, pointing at Earth through the main viewing screen. "Scurrying around like insects who know they are about to be stepped on. Their little ships are probably shaking with fear." General Krixvor studied the tactical displays showing human military movements. Their space navy is moving into defensive positions around their planet. How cute. They have maybe 50 ships total. We have 300. "Those are not ships," Admiral Thaindal laughed. "Those are toys. Our smallest fighter craft could destroy their biggest battleship. This will not even be a real battle." The Zenthari had good reason to be confident. Their empire stretched across thousands of star systems. They had crushed every enemy they had ever faced. Their ships carried weapons that could melt mountains and shields that could stop nuclear bombs. No primitive species had ever lasted more than a few hours against them. Down on Earth, the scene looked very different. In government buildings around the world, leaders watched the alien fleet with calm expressions. They knew something the aliens did not know. They had been preparing for this day for a very long time. President Morrison stood in the White House Situation Room, surrounded by screens showing the positions of every alien ship. The room was filled with his top advisors, but nobody looked worried. In fact, some of them were trying not to smile. "Admiral Hayes," the president said, "what is the status of our conventional forces?" Admiral Ben Hayes looked at his reports. "All surface fleets are in position around major cities. Our space defense platforms are online. Our fighter squadrons are ready to launch. To any outside observer, it looks like we are preparing for a desperate last stand." "Perfect," President Morrison said. "And our real assets?" "Hidden and waiting," Admiral Hayes replied. "The aliens have no idea what we actually have." Dr. Nina Walsh was reviewing data on her tablet. The information would have amazed the Zenthari commanders if they could have seen it. Earth scientists had been studying alien technology for decades. They knew exactly how Zenthari ships worked, what their weaknesses were, and how to exploit them. "Their shield generators operate on a very specific frequency," she explained to the room. "They never changed the design because it worked so well against every enemy they faced. Unfortunately for them, we figured out how to neutralize those exact shields 15 years ago." Defense Secretary Lisa Carter nodded. "What about their weapons?" "Impressive, but predictable," Dr. Walsh said. "They use plasma cannons that take several seconds to charge between shots. Their targeting systems are designed to hit large, slow targets. They have never faced anything fast enough to avoid their fire." High above Earth, Captain Alex Rodriguez continued his silent watch from the stealth ship Silent Thunder. His crew had been monitoring alien communications for hours. What they heard made them want to laugh out loud. "Listen to this," Lieutenant Sarah Williams said, playing a recorded alien transmission. "Admiral Zexthul just told his fleet commanders that this battle will be over so quickly they might not even need to reload their weapons." Captain Rodriguez shook his head. "They really have no idea." "Have you finished mapping their fleet?" "Every ship, sir," his weapons officer reported. "We know the location of their engines, their shield generators, their weapon systems, and their command centers. We even know which ships have the most experienced crews and which ones are just there to look scary. Send it all to command," Rodriguez ordered. "And make sure to include our recommendation." "Which is?" "That we feel sorry for them." The alien commanders continued to position their ships with casual confidence. They had fought this same battle hundreds of times before. A primitive species would see their massive fleet, panic, and either surrender immediately or make a desperate attack that would be crushed within minutes. Admiral Zexthul received reports from his scout ships. "The humans are broadcasting messages to their colonies in other star systems," his communications officer reported. "It sounds like they are saying goodbye to their families." "How touching," the Admiral said. "At least they know what is coming. That will make the surrender negotiations easier." What the aliens did not realize was that those messages were not goodbyes. They were activation codes. All across the solar system, hidden human facilities were coming online. Weapons that had been disguised as research stations were powering up. Ships that looked like cargo haulers were revealing their true nature. Commander Ryan Kelly continued his work aboard the research vessel Aurora. To alien sensors, his ship appeared to be studying asteroid compositions. In reality, he was deploying a network of quantum sensors that would give humanity perfect information about every alien ship. "Deployment complete," his science officer reported. "We now have real-time data on every enemy vessel. We know their power levels, their crew positions, even what they had for breakfast." "Excellent," Kelly said. "Begin Phase 2. Start targeting their command systems." Deep underground, Major Kate Thompson monitored her defense grid from a secret command center. Banks of computers processed incoming data about the alien fleet. Her screens showed information that would have terrified the Xanthari if they knew it existed. "Grid synchronization complete," she reported to Admiral Hayes. "All platforms are locked onto their targets. We have firing solutions for every enemy ship." "How long until we can engage?" Admiral Hayes asked. "We could do it right now, sir," Thompson replied. "But following the plan, we wait for their first move." The 72-hour deadline was approaching its end. On alien ships throughout the fleet, crew members made final preparations for what they expected to be a very short battle. They cleaned their weapons, checked their systems, and made bets about how quickly the humans would surrender. Admiral Zexathul stood on his bridge, looking down at the small blue world that would soon belong to his empire. He felt almost disappointed that the conquest would be so easy. There would be no glory in defeating such a weak enemy. "Sir," his tactical officer said, "we are receiving a response from the human government." "Put it on the main screen," Zexathul ordered. "Let us hear their surrender." But President Morrison did not appear on screen to beg for mercy. Instead, he stood calmly in his office, wearing a slight smile that the alien commander did not understand. "Admiral Zexathul," the human leader said, "we have received your ultimatum and considered your offer carefully. After much discussion, we must respectfully decline." The alien bridge fell silent. This was not what they had expected to hear. "Furthermore," President Morrison continued, "we would like to make a counteroffer. You have 60 seconds to leave our solar system. After that, we cannot guarantee your safety." Admiral Zexathul stared at the screen in shock. Then he began to laugh. The bridge crew joined him. The idea that these primitive humans were threatening them was the funniest thing they had heard in years. 60 seconds? Zexathul said between laughs. "These humans are either very brave or very stupid." He looked at his weapons officer. "Prepare to fire on their planet. Let us show them what happens when someone refuses the Xanthari Empire." But as the alien weapons began to charge, something strange happened. Human ships that had been hiding in the shadows suddenly appeared on sensors. Not dozens of ships, but hundreds. Each one was larger and more advanced than anything the aliens had ever seen. Admiral Zexathul stopped laughing. The 60 seconds were almost up. The massive alien ships appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system, like dark clouds blocking out the stars. Each vessel was the size of a small city, their black hulls covered in weapons that could crack planets in half. Admiral Zexathul stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Void Crusher, and smiled with sharp teeth. Today would be another easy victory for the Xanthari Empire. "Send the message to the humans," he ordered his communications officer. The alien's voice was deep and filled with the confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. "Tell them they have 3 days to surrender or we will turn their little blue world into space dust." On Earth, President Jake Morrison was having his morning coffee when the message arrived. He was a tall man with gray hair who had led the planet through many difficult times. The alien transmission came through every screen. every radio, and every device that could receive signals across the entire planet. "People of Earth," the alien voice said through translators, "I am Admiral Zexthul of the Zenthari Empire. Your species has been chosen to join our great empire. You will surrender all your weapons and submit to our rule. You have 72 hours to comply. If you refuse, we will destroy your world and everyone on it. This is not a request. This is your only warning." The message ended, leaving billions of humans staring at their screens in shock. President Morrison put down his coffee cup and pressed a button on his desk. Within minutes, his office was filled with the most important people on Earth. Defense Secretary Lisa Carter was the first to arrive. She was a smart woman who had spent years preparing for this exact moment. Admiral Ben Hayes followed her, his military uniform showing years of dedicated service. Dr. Nina Walsh came next, carrying a tablet filled with information that would change everything. "How many ships?" President Morrison asked, getting straight to the point. "Our deep space sensors count 300 vessels," Admiral Hayes replied. "Each one is about 5 miles long. They have enough firepower to glass the entire planet several times over." "Or so they think," Dr. Nina Walsh said quietly, looking at her tablet. The others turned to her with curious expressions. "President?" Morrison nodded slowly. "Is Project Haymaker ready?" "It has been ready for 10 years, sir," Dr. Walsh answered. "We have been waiting for a moment exactly like this one." Far out in space, Captain Alex Rodriguez sat in the pilot seat of his ship, the Silent Thunder. The vessel was completely invisible to the alien sensors, using technology that bent light around it like water flowing around a stone. Alex had been watching the alien fleet for hours, taking detailed scans of every ship. "This is interesting," he said to his crew. "Their ships look scary, but they are using really old technology. Their shields work on frequencies we figured out how to beat 20 years ago." His second-in-command, Lieutenant Sarah Williams, looked at the readings. "Their weapons are powerful, but they are slow. Really slow. They probably work great against other aliens, but not against us." Captain Rodriguez smiled. "Send everything to Admiral Hayes. Tell him these aliens have no idea what they are getting into." Back on the alien flagship, Admiral Zexthul was reviewing reports from his scouts. The Zenthari had conquered 847 star systems. Each time the story was the same. They would arrive, demand surrender, and the primitive species would either give up immediately or fight a hopeless battle that lasted a few hours at most. "What do we know about these humans?" he asked his intelligence officer. "They are a young species, sir. They only learned to fly in space about 100 years ago. They have some weapons, but nothing that can hurt our ships. Their biggest vessels are tiny compared to ours. This will be over very quickly." General Krixvor, the Empire's top military commander, laughed. "I almost feel bad for them. They probably think their little metal ships can fight us. It will be like watching children try to fight grown warriors. At least they will provide some entertainment," Admiral Thanedahl added. "The last 3 planets surrendered without firing a single shot. I was hoping for a little action." What the aliens did not know was that humans had been listening to their communications for decades. Every message they sent was being decoded and analyzed by teams of scientists and military experts. Earth had known about the Zenthari Empire long before the aliens knew about Earth. President Morrison walked to the window of his office and looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, an alien fleet was waiting to destroy his world. But Jake Morrison was not worried. He was actually looking forward to what came next. "Lisa," he said to the defense secretary, "contact our allies. Let them know it is time." "Which allies, sir?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "All of them. Every human colony, every research station, every ship we have hidden in the dark corners of space. Tell them the show is about to begin." Dr. Walsh smiled as she sent messages to secret facilities around the solar system. For 50 years, humanity had been building weapons and defenses that the aliens could not even imagine. The Zenthari thought they were dealing with primitive humans who barely knew how to leave their home planet. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Commander Ryan Kelly received the message aboard his research vessel, the Aurora. To anyone watching, it looked like a simple science ship studying asteroids. In reality, it was one of the most advanced vessels ever built by human hands. The equipment he was installing looked like telescopes and communication arrays. The aliens had no idea they were actually weapons that could reach across the galaxy. "Begin Phase 1, he told his crew. "Start mapping their entire fleet. I want to know the location of every bolt and wire on those ships." On dozens of other ships scattered throughout the solar system, similar crews were beginning their work. Each vessel was hidden, invisible to alien sensors, and armed with technology that would make the Zenthari Empire's best weapons look like Stone Age tools. Major Kate Thompson was deep underground in a facility that did not officially exist. She sat in front of computers that controlled a defense network spanning the entire solar system. Her team had been waiting for this day for years. Every simulation, every test, every drill had led to this moment. "Grid is online," she reported to Admiral Hayes. "All systems showing green. We are ready." The 72-hour countdown had begun. The aliens waited in space, confident and relaxed. They had no doubt about how this would end. The humans were just another primitive species that would either surrender or be destroyed. But President Morrison stood in his office, looking up at the stars, and smiled. The Zenthari Empire had sent their best ships and their most experienced commanders. They thought they were about to win their easiest victory ever. Instead, they were about to face humanity. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler 442b, the news had spread across the entire galaxy. In government buildings, military academies, and spaceports throughout known space, people were talking about the humans, the small, unknown species that had appeared from nowhere and changed everything. Admiral Gentai of the Zephyrian Navy stood before the High Council in the Empire's capital city. The massive chamber was filled with the Empire's most powerful leaders, all of them demanding answers about the human intervention. "Admiral," spoke Council Leader Vorth Ak, his voice echoing through the hall, "explain to us how a single alien vessel defeated an entire Crimson Horde fleet. Our intelligence reports suggest this should have been impossible." Gentai activated the holographic display showing the battle recordings from Commander Vexhi's ship. The council members watched in silence as the human vessel charged through enemy fire, using tactics that defied all military logic. "Honored Council," Gentai began, "the humans fight unlike any species we have encountered. They use their ships as weapons, accepting damage that would destroy most vessels. More importantly, they seem willing to die for people they have never met." Council member Dalrix leaned forward in her seat. "And what threat do they represent to the Empire?" "That depends on how we respond to them," Gentai replied carefully. "Our analysis suggests they pose no threat to us unless we threaten others under their protection. However, they have begun establishing defensive agreements with abandoned colonies throughout the sector." The council chamber erupted in surprised murmurs. Abandoned colonies were worthless by definition. No government wasted resources protecting settlements that could not pay for their own defense. Meanwhile, on Earth, Captain Morrison had been promoted to Admiral and placed in command of humanity's first diplomatic mission to the galactic community. The UES Resolution, a new ship designed specifically for this mission, was preparing to depart for the galactic capital. Morrison stood in his ready room, reviewing the files on the various alien governments they would encounter. The more he learned about galactic politics, the more concerned he became. Most species seemed to view other beings as resources to be used or obstacles to be removed. Dr. Turner, now serving as the mission's chief diplomatic advisor, entered with the latest intelligence reports. "Admiral, we've received responses from 17 different governments requesting meetings, They all want to know more about our intervention policies. What kind of responses? Morrison asked. Mixed, Turner replied, sitting down across from Morrison's desk. Some governments are worried that we'll interfere in their internal affairs. Others are interested in hiring us as mercenaries. A few seem genuinely curious about our motivations. Morrison shook his head. The idea of hiring humans as soldiers for profit missed the point entirely. What about the colonies we've been helping? That's the interesting part, Turner said, pulling up a star chart on his tablet. Word has spread among the abandoned settlements. We're receiving distress calls from colonies that haven't been attacked yet, asking for protection agreements. Some are offering to join a human confederation in exchange for defense guarantees. The map showed dozens of small settlements scattered across the galaxy's frontier regions. All of them had been deemed too expensive to protect by their original governments. All of them were now looking to humanity for the safety their own species had denied them. On the pirate world of Scaros Prime, Warlord Gorvac was holding a meeting with other pirate leaders. The defeat at Kepler 442b had damaged his reputation, but it had also taught him valuable lessons about these new humans. The humans are unpredictable, Gorvac explained to the assembled warlords. They do not follow standard military doctrine. They will sacrifice themselves for strangers, which makes them extremely dangerous in certain situations. Warlord Krextar, leader of the Iron Fang pirates, laughed dismissively. One lucky battle does not make them invincible, Gorvac. Perhaps you have grown soft. Gorvac's eyes flashed with anger, but he controlled his temper. Then you are welcome to test them yourself. Krextar. The humans have established protection agreements with 43 colonies in the past 6 months. Attack any of them and see what happens. The laughter died in Krextar's throat. 43 colonies meant the humans were building a network of defended worlds. That was not the action of a single ship with lucky tactics. That was the beginning of a new power in the galaxy. In the Galactic Council chambers on the neutral world of Centris Prime, representatives from hundreds of species were debating the human question. The arrival of a new species was always significant, but the humans had announced their presence in the most dramatic way possible. Ambassador Kixval from the hegemony stood at the central podium, addressing the assembly. These humans represent a destabilizing force in galactic politics. They ignore established territorial boundaries and interfere in conflicts that do not concern them. We must establish clear limits on their activities. Representative Dal Nash from the Free Worlds Alliance rose to respond. With respect, Ambassador, the humans have only acted to protect civilian populations from pirate attacks. They have made no territorial claims and have not threatened any legitimate government. They have disrupted the natural order, Kixval insisted. Colonies that cannot defend themselves should be abandoned or conquered. This is how the galaxy has always functioned. Dal Nash smiled coldly. And perhaps that is exactly what needs to change. The debate continued for hours, with no clear resolution. Some species saw the humans as a threat to stability. Others viewed them as a potential solution to problems their governments had ignored for centuries. Meanwhile, the UES resolution was approaching the galactic capital, carrying Admiral Morrison and his diplomatic team. The ship was escorted by vessels from 6 different governments, all of them curious about humanity's intentions. Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the massive space station that served as the galaxy's political center grow larger on the main screen. The station was home to over 10 million beings from hundreds of different species. It was the most diverse place in known space. Admiral, reported Communication Officer Linda Chang, we're receiving docking instructions and formal. Greetings from the Council. They're treating this as a major diplomatic event. Any word from the colonies? Morrison asked. Yes, sir, Chang replied, checking her console. Colony Administrator Kethron sends his regards and confirms that Kepler 442b is still secure. The new defense systems we helped them install are working perfectly. Morrison nodded with satisfaction. In the 6 months since the battle, human engineering teams had helped fortify dozens of abandoned colonies. The settlements were no longer helpless targets for pirates and raiders. As the Resolution docked at the station, Morrison reflected on how much had changed since that day when they first heard the distress call from Kepler 442b. Humanity had gone from unknown explorers to a recognized power in galactic politics, all because they had answered a call for help. Dr. Turner joined him at the observation window, watching the crowds of alien dignitaries gathering to meet them. "Are you ready?" "For this, Admiral? Once we walk out there, humanity officially becomes part of galactic civilization." Morrison watched a group of young aliens playing in the station's central park, their different species working together without concern for politics or territory. It reminded him of his own crew, helping strangers simply because it was the right thing to do. "The galaxy is about to learn something important about humans," Morrison said quietly. "We don't abandon people who need help, and we don't ignore calls for assistance just because it's inconvenient or unprofitable." "And if they don't like that?" Turner asked. Morrison smiled, thinking of Captain Jake Morrison and the crew of the U.S. original Defiant, still out there exploring and helping wherever they were needed. Then they'll learn why pirates started avoiding systems with human protection agreements. As they prepared to disembark and meet with the galactic community, Morrison carried with him the simple truth that had brought humanity to this moment. When someone called for help and everyone else said no one would come, humans had a dangerous habit of proving them wrong. The galaxy would never be quite the same again. And that, Morrison thought, was probably a good thing. The station's communication system crackled to life with an announcement in dozens of languages. "Now arriving, the diplomatic mission from Earth. Please welcome humanity to the Galactic Council." Morrison straightened his uniform and walked toward the airlock, ready to represent not just his species, but the idea that help should come to those who need it, regardless of profit or politics. Behind him, the stars shone with the light of hundreds of worlds where human ships patrolled the darkness, ensuring that no distress call would go unanswered ever again.